The problem is nobody wants to talk about it. You know, all they want to do is delay it, delay it, delay it, have the American people forget about it, and then walk away from it until the next tragedy. I mean, you can't have a debate with me and say there's any reason in the world why we need to have large magazines on the streets for the average citizen to be able to buy.
Okay, that was a piece of an interview that we did earlier this week with Carolyn McCarthy. And you may remember this is a lawmaker who has a perspective on this. She lost her husband to a shooting right on the Long Island Railroad. Her son was also injured in that shooting, thankfully recovered. We're talking about guns in America, dialogue, obviously very apropos given what happened on that late Thursday evening in Aurora, Colorado, in a movie theater. And we're attempting, I'm not sure we are achieving, but attempting to find if there is some common ground in this national debate. Now, here's the next question for you. Do we need stricter background checks in this country? I mean, you look at Virginia Tech, and you saw that crazed student out there. Obviously, you see what happened in Aurora. But again, the amount of questions or lack thereof is stunning to me. No background checks, and again, everything that this kid did was legal. He bought all the ammo legally, walked in and he got an assault weapon legally. And to me, I know a gun is a right, so we're not going to get into this. We can debate what kind of guns maybe should be rights. But isn't it also a privilege? And I've spoken to a lot of gun owners out there, and to me, they always complain that people aren't properly trained. Well, if I'm going to drive a car, here's what I got to do. I got to pass a written test, and I got to pass a driver's test. I also have to get insurance for the car. I have to be licensed. Why is it that if we have an inalienable right at a certain age in this country to drive a car, shouldn't we also be able to say that, okay, you can have a gun, but we want you to be properly trained in it? And then thereby in that process, if there's red flags that are going to go up that this is an imbalanced human being, at least we can at least put in some more checks. Why not? Why shouldn't, and by the way, Congressman, why shouldn't gun owners be the ones making that most vocal argument louder than me?
I would say it's a right, and I would say it's a responsibility. In my hometown, you cannot just go and get a weapon. You have to receive a permit, and this is true of many towns in many states around the country. Different states have different rules and regulations. If, in fact, this guy can do what he did in Colorado, I would argue he probably can't do it in Connecticut. So maybe the state of Colorado needs to look a little more carefully at what they allow.
But you talked about it being a right. I just want to bring up another right. In Pennsylvania right now, you need essentially to pass a background check to vote. You need to be able to show that you have ID, that you're an American citizen and all that. There's more rigorous checks now to be able to exercise the right to vote, the constitutional right to vote, than there is when it comes to, again, the right to gun possession.
I will talk about my state and my community. You have to show an ID to vote. You cannot get a permit to carry a weapon without going to the police station and going through a fairly elaborate process.
But Congressman, somebody from your state can go to a gun show in Pennsylvania and not show any documentation and get that gun.
And maybe that's an issue for Pennsylvania to address. Maybe it's an issue for Colorado to address.
That's not a safety issue for Connecticut?
And maybe we've had this discussion before, that what pertains, for example, with Mayor Bloomberg in an inner city like New York is different than what pertains out in Montana. Different states have different laws to deal with this issue.
I'm going to ask you the next question. This one, somebody's got to make logic for me because I don't get this, okay? You saw this guy, Holmes. He had body armor from head to toe. For all the people who said, oh, if somebody had a gun, they weren't piercing his body armor, okay? He also, legally in this country, could have bought, for all we know did, body-piercing armor. If body armor is designed to stop bullets, and body-piercing armor is designed to go through bulletproof vests, why should those be available to the general public when our own law enforcement don't even have?
Richard, I don't have a problem with the body armor. I understand fully your point, and it's a very logical one. I'm not necessarily concerned about that, and I have a great respect for the congressman, but I want someone to explain to me, someone from the NRA, or perhaps you, Congressman. Okay, we all agreed, as Richard said, you can have a gun. We're not stepping on your Second Amendment right. But why do you need an assault rifle? You need to shoot the deer 100 times in a minute? I mean, that's not even hunting. That's slaughtering. Why? I don't understand the logic Why do you need a M16, or why should you have more firepower than the police officers responding to the shooting?
Well, first of all, the Second Amendment was not designed to protect hunters. It really wasn't about hunters. It was about personal protection of individuals who wanted to protect themselves ultimately from the government.
We understand that.
Because traditionally it is the governments that control weapons, okay? All right, so we can make any kind of hypothetical we want, but the fact is, from my perspective, that once again, it's not the trigger finger, it's not the weapon that concerns me. It's the state of mind of the individual and the role of society to identify those people with this state of mind.
You have a line, though. You have a line. Maybe not everybody in your party does, but you have acknowledged you have a line. You're not going to let people have nuclear weapons. You're not going to let them have bazookas. You're not going to let them have rocket launchers, okay? So you yourself said that there is, from a public safety standpoint, a line that you're not comfortable with. Now we're just talking about what's the degree. And for me, a practical question is this. The only argument somebody's ever said to me why somebody should have an assault weapon is because they're a gun enthusiast and it's a great thrill to use it at the range. I'll make you a deal. Keep the gun at the range. To me, the idea, and I've spoken to law enforcement, and believe me, a lot of them, they'll vote red, okay? They'll vote in the red more than in the blue. But what they have the biggest fear when they go out and they knock on a door and they're trying to serve a warrant is the guy on the other side of the door has got more firepower than they do. And for me, in America, that makes no sense. And again, you want a right to defend yourself, you can do it. I think there ought to be checks and balances, but if I'm even at this point willing to say that. But you shouldn't have assault weapons that are designed to kill man.
In the state of Connecticut, you cannot have an assault weapon.
But
that's
that's
our law, and that's our rule, okay? But different states have different laws, and different states have to make those evaluations. That's what this country is all about, or you concede all power to the federal government.
So people in other states deserve less protection than the citizens of Connecticut?
It's not a question of less protection. It's a question of states' rights, Andrew. It's a question of different states making these determinations, and the same is true of municipalities.
Is it really that chilling that we've gotten to the point where that the NRA can really have that amount of swing?
It has nothing to do with the NRA. It has to do with the Second Amendment. It has to do with states' rights, Richard.
You know, by the way, when they wrote the Second Amendment, we didn't have a police force, we didn't have a military,
the NRA
we didn't
would
have a National
no
Guard.
power whatsoever if there weren't a lot of American citizens who support those basic issues.
We are not talking nowadays about rallying to go fight the redcoats, okay? That's when they wrote the thing.
No, but the Constitution was framed by men who were more afraid of government than they were of...
By the way, out of 9 justices, 5 agree with you, okay? But 4 don't. So the unanimity there, I don't.